Hello again. I've done a couple of Force tutorials, one on Ableton and one or two on MIDI, I think now as well, and syncing various things with the Force. So I wanted to do another one quickly today, just on the thing that I haven't found an awful lot about, which is CV sync. There's only a tiny bit in the manual about this as well, so it is a little bit confusing because you're not quite sure what to do. In the manual, basically what it says is just add a CV track and everything will work fine. And that's fine if you want to control an instrument via CV, but we want to just send some sync, and that's a slightly different process. So I'm going to talk you through that. So on the Force, I've managed to get my MIDI stuff synced up. So I've got a little clip here that plays back, and then my drum machine comes in. So I'm just going to turn that off for now and mute it. But what I need to get is my CV equipment working as well, in sync with all this stuff. The way to do that is to go into matrix mode and then add a new track, select CV, and then double click on the header of the track at the top. And that gives you the options. We don't actually need to change the options, but I thought I'd just mention them anyway. So on here, you've got 2 ports set up. CV port is set to 1 and gate port is set for 2. We only need to use the gate port for sync, so we'll leave it as 2. That's absolutely fine. Obviously, if you had more than one thing, you need to set up different multiple CV tracks, and you might want to set up gate ports on each one of those to control several different instruments, but I don't need to do that. So I'm going to use gate port 2. So all I've got now is my cable here that comes out of gate port 2 on the back here. And that cable goes over here to the Volca department of my studio. And that cable comes in to the Volca bass sync just here. And then I've also got a cable that comes out the sync out, and it goes into the Volca sample at the back. And those two things then will sync together, and the audio comes through this little Volca mix thing here, which goes back into the MX1. So what we've got is a cable coming out of CV port 2 of the Force and going into the sync here on the Volca bass. So what we need to do now is we need to set up on the Force a track just to send a pulse. And the easiest way to do that is basically create a clip in the CV track. I'm going into step sequencer mode because it's the easiest way to do it. Make sure I've got full velocity, and then I'm just going to put in notes that create a pulse, a simple pulse like that. And when I play that back, that will then play a pulse to those Volcas, and it will sync those Volcas using that pulse. So there are a couple of things that I just quickly need to do as well. So with the Volcas, I'm not sure if it's the same with other analog gear, but I just need to press the play button to engage each Volca. And also one thing that happens is when you stop playback on the Volcas, if it's stopped halfway through a sequence, it will carry on from that point. So it's worth disengaging that every time you start your Volcas as well, just so it starts from step number 1. It's a little tip for you there. Okay, so now when I play back my sequence, you'll see those Volcas spring to life. There we go, and the lights are moving and the sequence is playing, and if I hit the mute button here, you can hear the bass line playing back, and here is the Volca sample. Okay, and when I hit stop, it stops. Now occasionally you will get that note hold thing, and you just need to disengage the Volca play button like that to do that. It's just that the note off hasn't been played at that point. So now, just to check that that's synced in, I've knocked them out of play mode, just going to knock them back in again, so it zeroes back to step number 1. I'm going to come back over to the Force, and I'm going to unmute my drum track and also turn up my TR8 slightly so we can hear that drum track. And now what I'm going to do is play back those 3 sequences together, and the Volca should be in time with everything else. there we go. Now, there is some interesting things you can do because it's responding to that pulse. So if we, for example, wanted our Volcers to play back at half speed, then all we need to do is take out one of those pulses, and now the Volca will play back at half speed. So that means it gives you a little bit more scope with the Volcers because you're limited to the number of steps. You can only have 16 steps. So effectively that would give you 32 steps if you're using eighth notes. So that would be an interesting thing. The other thing you can do is the opposite of that. We can double the pulse. And what that will do is play it back at twice the speed, which can be quite interesting again. So by playing around with the CV and the length of the notes that you're putting in to act as the trigger for the gate, you can get some interesting effects. Hopefully that's demystified the CV track for you a little bit. Just to recap, what we do is we go to the matrix mode, we add a CV track, we make sure that the gate is sending through one of the CV ports, and then we connect that port to the sync in on our equipment that we're going to use, and then we create a pulse track using one of the clips to send timing to that device, and hopefully that should get your device working. And hopefully that's been a useful little tutorial for you. Thanks for watching.